Hi, good morning, everyone. Apologies, I've almost lost my voice, so please bear with me. I had the pleasure of meeting the other Geoffrey Tan recently. And if you're having trouble distinguishing between us, I spell my first name correctly with a G, and I've got a little bit of white hair or gray hair, which may demonstrate either experience or having a couple of teenage kids, one of the two. I'm going to try to keep it quick and brief. I have a couple things to talk about. One is, of course, the DFC and what we're trying to do in PNG. Many months ago, when I first started talking to Andrew about this discussion, it was with another colleague from USAID, which many of you are probably more familiar with. Unfortunately, she's not able to make it, so I've stuck in a few of her slides in here. I won't be able to cover them very well, but I believe you're getting the slides afterwards. And so hopefully that'll give you a taste, at least, of what USAID is doing, a little bit of an update. And of course, I can direct you to her if you have any questions. So, DFC. We are US government. We're a development finance institution. And like the others in this space, we're here to help emerging economies develop. Excuse me. And we do that with a focus on the private sector, right? So like the other Geoffrey Tan at the IFC, like the private sector department within ADB, our mission is to catalyze private sector investment to fill gaps, if you will, right? Where there are viable investments that aren't able to attract the right type of tools from the private sector, that's where we fit in, and we try to fill those gaps. As a development finance institution, we're clearly focused on development and those impacts. We're focused on lower income countries and low middle income countries, and of course, markets that are underserved. And of course, we have very high standards, and thank you, Andrew, adhere to transparency as well. Oops. Just a quick snapshot, give you a flavor. North of 36 billion of exposure globally around the world. I'll get to what that means in terms of our products. We're a little bit underweight in Asia Pacific, hence our interest in doing a lot more in this region. And of course, as you know, the Pacific in particular is a high strategic priority for the US government. And so we're very, very keen to expand our footprint here as well. Very quickly, some of our priorities, probably none of them are a surprise. First off is climate. Probably number one in our list. And that covers, mitigation, but also adaptation, nature-based solutions, et cetera, et cetera. Very wide kind of grouping, if you will, within climate. Global health, we're sort of, I hope, past the pandemic now, so our focus is slightly different, but still very much focused on enabling the ecosystems to respond to similar events, as well as kind of your day-to-day needs in terms of health and healthcare, including supply chain logistics, water and sanitation. Gender, I'll come back to. ICT, we just heard about. Very much a focus for us. Connectivity is key to so many things, including providing opportunity to businesses and entrepreneurs. So we're involved in everything from subsea cables to potentially satellites, to data centers, to telecom towers, MNOs. We supported Telstra. I'll come back to that in a minute, with the acquisition of Digicel Pacific. And then also ISPs and the like. Inclusive growth is something that we focus on a lot, of course. In particular, it's very relevant in the financial services space, right? So we do a lot of work with microfinance, MSME financing. We don't do that directly, of course. We're only about 400 people. So we work with financial institutions in country to leverage their network, their expertise, but provide them with liquidity or with risk-sharing arrangements, depending on what's appropriate for the circumstance. And then, of course, within inclusivity, there's gender. Gender is something we look at in all of our transactions, whether it be a toll road, an airport, or a financial services transaction that I just mentioned. And I'm happy to talk about that in more detail, if you like. Sorry, I'm going very fast. These are the tools that we offer. Again, probably not surprising to many of you who've worked with other DFIs, but our biggest tool, if you will, in terms of our portfolio is debt. So loans and loan guarantees. I'm going to come back to that in a minute because I think it's something that's quite relevant for PNG. We also offer political risk insurance, something for foreign investors, very similar to what the MIGA provides, if you're familiar with the World Bank organization called MIGA. So cover for losses due to political events such as political violence, expropriation, inability to repatriate hard currency. We also offer breach of contract, which is a extended coverage where the client has a contract with the government. Equity and investment funds, I will say frankly, probably not relevant for PNG at this moment in time. Our focus in that space tends to be on the larger markets like India, Indonesia, and the like. But hopefully in time, as our equity team grows, because it's a new product for us, that'll change. And then technical assistance, again, I'll come back to in a second, but that's our grant making facility, but it is tied to our other products. So debt financing, I wanted to go through this again very quickly, just to give you a flavor. And I won't read through this, but the main message I hope is flexibility, right? 1 to $1 billion US dollars. Flexible in terms of tenor. Again, we're focused on investment, so we're not doing trade finance, 1, 2 year facilities. We're doing typically north of 5 years, even above 20 for infrastructure. Currency, I know, is a big issue. Obviously, when we lend directly, it's in US dollars. We're very keen to work with others who might support us in providing local currency in situations where the local market is very liquid, such as PNG, and local borrowers really need local currency. We're very keen to collaborate and work with our guarantee instrument so that we can support those local institutions, reach clients, reach customers that they otherwise wouldn't, right, for risk reasons. Very quickly, again, here we've supported the acquisition of Digicel Pacific by Telstra in collaboration with the Commonwealth and EFA. And then, so it's 50 million for us, fairly small amount in the context of the transaction, but meaningful again for us. And then a much smaller example is our work in MSME financing with MyBank. A couple examples from outside PNG in terms of, again, how we can play a role. We did the first wind or solar project in Indonesia, so we often do first of their kind transactions in this case, energy sector, but more broadly in the PPP space, right? Where the private sector isn't quite yet comfortable putting their money to work, at least by itself. You know, they would like some support, if you will, from institutions like us. I would say there's a lot of benefit from having the US government in your deal because we can engage with the government in ways that the private sector cannot. And then in the ag space, and again, a smaller deal, we provided financing to, these two happen to be in Indonesia, but we do this elsewhere as well, a coconut products company that is working with smallholder farmers and really building up a sustainable value chain. Okay. Technical development assistance. This is my last slide on DFC, then I'll move into some USAID slides. Who doesn't like free money, right? This is our window for that. As I mentioned, it is tied to our other products, right? So We don't offer this on a standalone basis. What it's meant to do is to help clients or potential clients get their projects to the finish line, right? So you come to us with a project that's 50%, 80% kind of developed, right? We're not typically not using this to do initial feasibility studies. But if you come to us and say, well, we're almost there, we're almost ready to, seek debt financing or what have you, but there are a few gaps that we need to get filled, this is what this is for, right? One easy example is a lot of clients develop their environmental and social strategy and procedures, etc., based upon local regulations, which is totally understandable. If we're going to get involved, of course, it's our standards that need to be met, and they can be different, they can be higher. But that gap analysis, right, between local and international, that's work that can be done by outside advisors that we would help fund. And then the work that needs to be done to address those gaps, we can also help fund. Same thing applies for technical assistance in terms of engineering. If there's a final piece that needs to be done, maybe it's a little bit of a grid analysis in the energy sector or what have you, that's what this is for. And again, it's not for client costs, it's for bringing in an outside advisor, a technical expert to help address these issues. Happy to take questions on that if of interest. Okay, so shifting a little bit. So again, that was all DFC. Folks do get us confused because we're both US government and in the development space. But AID is very different, right? So AID can work with government. Again, we are focused on private sector, DFC. AID does a lot of programmatic work that we can't do, and so on. PEP, probably many of you know. I won't kind of repeat what the mandate is and what they're trying to do. But I'd like to give you just a few slides on what they have accomplished, right, in terms of their work, looking to support access, right, connectivity to power, as well as work on new generation, and perhaps a little bit less on terms of the regulator and PPL. So this is one success story. It is a pilot project. It does involve the private sector, but not in the sense that it's a commercially viable transaction, right? So here, with a very welcome and appreciated support from Santos, USAID was able to address some of the power issues that were impacting the operations of the Pimaga Rural Hospital. And so, again, not a huge investment, not a huge transaction, but I think not only does this help address the needs of the hospital, right, and power is, of course, critical to providing its services, reliable and and affordable power, I should say, but also it gives USAID data points, right, on how it can help develop its microgrid and other initiatives. Another one in terms of providing access to electricity, working with Mama Bank to provide loans so that homeowners and others can install solar home systems, right? And then a couple of project preparation activities that they've done. One is with the Markham Valley Solar Project. Probably some of you are more familiar with it than I am, but again, a wonderful opportunity that hopefully will get some traction. Of course, this activity is only one of many that are needed, and one of the several pieces that need to fall into place for the project to move forward. And then the other one is the waste to energy biogas project mentioned here, up in Milne Bay. Again, a work in progress, but to give you a flavor of the types of things that USAID is trying to push forward in this space. And then finally, business expos and networking events. I put this up here to not only highlight that it's happening, but also to let you know that on the 18th, they'll be in Hagen, on the September 15th in Goroka, and in Leh on the 3rd of November. So I think that's the last one. It's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. If we have time now, I'm happy to take questions, but I apologize in advance. I do have to catch a plane, so I won't be around too much longer after this. Thank you.
We do have a couple of questions, if that's all right. Thank you, Geoffrey. And we do actually have a couple of questions from the app, if that's all right. You mentioned before the Telstra acquisition of Digicel, which was quite a significant investment in the telco space in PNG. Some of the components of that was not just finance, but also there was some risk protection on currency and some other things as a part of that deal, which I'm not sure whether that was you guys or a part of the consortium that ended up supporting the bid. There's questions about default insurance. So can you act as a broker of some kind in helping with default insurance? Say, for example, if somebody's got a power purchase agreement for utilities or something like that in a developing country, is that something that DFC can work with or help with?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we, as I mentioned, we have in our debt offering, we have loans and loan guarantees. So in that space, we offer guarantees in many different ways. We can do partial credit guarantees, or we can do full wraps, right, 100%, where the recipient doesn't take any risk. That's typically how we deploy our tool, right? So we're not guaranteeing, for example, PPL as an off-taker, right? We wouldn't do that. We're not in a position to guarantee SOE performance, for example. But we will, depending on the circumstances, take that risk ourselves, right? And support that transaction either by lending directly or, again, providing insurance to another party. And again, I'm happy to explore that in more detail with anyone who's interested. But I'll just also round that out by mentioning our political risk insurance product. A little bit different, but the breach of contract cover might be a potential solution for some. But it is, like all insurance products, a little bit complicated in that it requires dispute resolution terms that are agreeable to us, because that dispute resolution process needs to run its course and needs to have been resolved in favor of our client. And then if the government contractor or the government counterpart, doesn't pay that award, that's when we pay. So it's a little bit more of a process, but yeah.